tension in there. Now I'm going to tie a stevedore stopper knot. It's in the Ashley Book of Knots. It's a great knot. So I can pull this up just like this, and I start with an underhand like that. Now notice when I tie this, I'm working back up towards the dog bone, so I'm not losing anything, right? I'm using this real estate that I've already occupied, and I can hold it with my finger right there, so it's easy to tie. Come around like that, and then I come around, and that sticks right through the pipe here, and I tie that up, and I haven't lost any tension in there, okay? And that sets in there like that. Super secure. Both knots are super secure. I seldom, if ever, undo this double overhand knot. It just lives on that dog bone. If I have a particular wear point, you can adjust how that sits and move the wear. Then I put that on there, and it'll be tight to start with, right? And then of course we'll check our hitch and make sure that it's setting. I have to be careful that I don't. So I can test my hitch, and do that a couple times, right? And then by the time I'm ready to walk up the road, I take my tending device, and with this, I can snug that up, right? I don't want to have things floating around. It drives me nuts to have flop and things floating around. So I can snug that up. I can step up the rope, and then generally what I'll do is my socket is always on the back of my bearings. It's sitting there, and I'll take my folding socket. It comes out, and I'll put that again on the anchor point. So when I put this on my foot, and that goes on.
You have really great shoes.
I like them. I do. Now notice everything's in alignment, and my knee ascender comes straight up, right up to the bottom of my multi-cylinder, which is my hitch. So it makes it. No, it's okay. It makes it super efficient with the knee ascender walking up the rope. I take this off. And it's easy for me to fold this back up. I fold it up, it wraps around, and now I've just put it on the back of my harness where I know it'll be, and I don't have to worry about it anymore, and I don't have to throw it to the ground or whatever. It's just back there. Take this off, and I'm ready to sit. Now notice, a lot of devices, even mechanical devices, sometimes you have to break them loose, and there's a guy I love, Jim. He makes a great little device called a hitch breaker.
Yeah.
And I've talked to Jim, and I said, it's a great device. I don't need it on mine because I don't have any problems breaking the hitch. So, for example, on this hitch, if I want it right now, I haven't moved it. It's where I put all my weight on it. If I want to come down a half an inch, I can just give it a turn and set that back. That was a half an inch, and it took 2 fingers. Now, if I really wanted to get my descent, I just grab it and run it like a regular way. So,
I have one more question, or don't understand. What?
yes.
I don't understand.
Yeah. So, if I'm up in the tree, and I'm pretty much ready to come down. If I'm doing a rescue, and I actually did a rescue for one of our club members one time. He got up there, panicked. It turns out he wasn't really, although if he continued, it would have turned into a life support thing. He would have had some problems. Anyway, I got to him, and I brought him down together. But I said, Bill, let me try my extra friction. Let me try my extra friction, and we'll both come down together. So, if I'm going to go on a really long descent, I want to take some of the wear off of my hitch cord. They can get hot, or whatever. I just want to preserve my hitch cord. So I'll put this in, And like I showed you on the ground, it's pretty dynamic. I can actually tighten this up as I'm descending it. When I screw this in, you can't, I don't know if you can see it, but when I screw this in, it takes that rounded part of the bolt there, and it adds the friction. All my weight's on it right now, so I have to keep it in place. If I take some of the weight off, it's much easier to throw it all the way in. And I don't have to take it all the way in. But notice now when I've taken it all the way in, now look at my hitch. My hitch is really not doing much.
Yeah.
So I've gone from like 25% of the controllable friction, taking the friction, to now I've got probably 95% of the friction occurring here, and maybe 5%, it's hard to measure what those numbers are, but maybe only 5% is my controllable friction. It's like I've gone from pretty good power brakes to super power brakes that all I have to do is just barely touch the pedal and the brakes are working great. And so when I was coming down with Bill, we were both on this, and of course now when Bill and I were on it, we got like 450 pounds sitting on this thing, right? So we're all on there. This thing is taking the majority of that, and now we probably have, 50 pounds on here. As long as you keep the hitch below around 70 pounds, they're going to work pretty good. You can take a kid that weighs 70 pounds, forget all this crap. And, he can still use a hitch. But as soon as we grow up, we need more on the hitch. And not only that, the hitch is very user-friendly when it comes to having an accident. I don't mean that, because I sell the Unicenter, a local Unicenter, for certain things, not for the everyday, all the time use. But notice when the Unicenter is unloaded, the bias ring has a bigger how easy that is. And that I can go to just about every mechanical device, and I can do that and just about send you to the ground, right? Like I said, I was an expert witness in the case. That did go to the ground. So with a HitchHiker, because of the tension in the hitch, that's not the case. There's a lot of friction in there. If the wind comes down, or my sleeve comes down, or if I'm standing on a branch doing whatever I'm doing and I take my lanyard off, if you've been climbing for any length of time, you've had something you're standing on or you slipped on, and all of a sudden this had to do what it does, right?
Oh yeah.
And it can hurt, it can startle you and stuff like that. But when you're startled, not even holding this, but even if on the vehicle, if your sleeve gets stuck on there, if you're kind of laying forward on it and you have a chest harness, it'll take you right to the ground. Nothing's going to stop you because that thing thinks it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's like, well, you're pushing down on me good, so let's go,
Yeah.
It's not going to get hurt. But, well, in the meantime, you got a second before it really hurts. And that's very little time to figure out what the heck's going on here because these are without tension. So, to me, it's a super, super safe device. It takes me, if I'm not talking, it takes me 30 seconds to put it on the rope. It doesn't take me very long to take it off of the rope. When I come off the rope, I just take this all the way off. And now that lives on my bridge. I just, and I'm okay with that living on my bridge because that's my life support. So, I do love these because I can snug this up. Now once I've reached the top of my ascent, and I'm talking about selling something else, when I've reached the top of my ascent, and I don't often put a chainsaw in my harness, but if I do, I got suspenders. I've gone from a tending device to suspenders. I've just started using this Edelvid harness, and I like it because it's got this SRT loop. I'm not going to SRT with that loop.
Yeah.
But for my suspenders, I'm not having that's supposed to. That SRT loop is actually supposed to go through this belt buckle, but I don't use it that way, so I don't really care. But even if it goes through there, it just gives me a great place that I can attach to without disturbing the buckle and all that stuff that wasn't designed to. So that's the device. And then I have, like I said, I have two versions. I'll use this generally. The way I climb is, let me cover, let me cover the other part, because this is also really important. So I set most of my anchors with the end of my climbing line up at the anchor. And I've made an argument many times, what's the most useful and versatile part of our climbing line? Other than the part that we're actually hanging on, right? That's my life is hanging on. But what's the most versatile and usable part of our climbing line? The end. It's so much easier to tie a knot in the end of my climbing line than it is in the middle. And you know, if I send this up and my anchor knot is in the middle of my climbing line and I want to change that, there's some things, but generally you have to guard it all up, move your anchor, do all that stuff. When I do this, if I'm using Patrick's daisy chain, I just pop that off and I can move it up the ladder a couple of ways. The other nice thing is when I climb up, let's pretend I'm climbing just to save me energy. When I climb up there, right, I'm ascending. Now all of a sudden, if I decide I want to go double moving rope, I'm double moving rope, boom. And this thing doesn't care. Now, the hitch cord here is taking a lot less of that controllable function, because now I've got proportional friction here, and I've got proportional friction up there, and the controllable friction is kind of like if I put that friction plug in there, so it has to do a lot less. Now, I'm just doing double moving rope. It still works flawlessly, just like that. It tends reasonably, and it's super secure because I don't have a carabiner. The one carabiner I have is double moving rope. Even if I'm rope walking, right? If I'm rope walking, I'm standing on this. This is all taut. It's not like SRT. I'm under tension now, and so when I'm under tension and I have tautness, I'm not so worried about the carabiner staying properly configured, or if I'm, whatever I'm stepping on. There's always going to be some tension in that system, just because double moving rope is a little different animal than SRT. And a lot of times people forget when they go to SRT that they're introducing flop in that whole system. So again, and I don't have to use my tending device. I can keep my pants on with my tending device. So it just flawlessly goes from SRT to double moving rope. And so again, if I want to go back to SRT, I'm SRT. If I want to go back to double moving rope, I'm double moving rope. You can't do less than that, because if you want to go to double moving rope, the first thing you have to do, however you do it, is you have to attach the other end of your rope. You can't get away from it. And so, I can do that, and if I want to go someplace else and make everything retrievable, I just love it. It's flawless. It's not a fully mechanical device, but it puts so much more versatility and function in my hands that are really easy to change and stuff like that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for the information. It's very, very good for me to see it. Yes.
Richard, they were making a really loud announcement when you were tying it in. Can you show us again how you initially tie that knot?
Yeah. Let me take it off. And again, if I was on the unisender, I would probably have it off the rope right now.
Yep.
And I'm a 72-year-old guy that got to be 72 years old because I didn't make a lot of really bad mistakes. And I like to keep it that way. I'd like to keep it running for a while, rather than be in a hurry and make a mistake. When people talk about how fast they can put something on the rope, I go, well, that's really cool. It's not one of my priorities is up here. Safety first.
Yeah.
And I'm a retired airline pilot. I spent 40 years flying for airlines internationally and all that stuff. And of course, airlines, 99% of it is safety first. When they say safety first, they really do mean it. and so that's really important to me. Again, if it takes me 30 seconds to do something, and I'm talking, so it's taking me a little longer. So if I'm getting ready to go on the rope, and I want to just walk up and get this on the rope, first thing I'll do is I'll make a little platform to set it on. So I'll just do a little safety knot on there. This comes up, the pin is already kind of out. I put the pin in. Really easy now to see that the plungers are always in. Even when you're using it, it's a very clear view to the pins and life support connection. This comes, my hitch comes in. The dog bone goes through, and just a personal preference, I'll get it where it's pointing that way. It just makes my life a little easier when I go to put the stopper at the end of it. First thing I'll do is come around the back side, the opposite side, come in here, and again, it makes it very easy for me to put, I'm starting to build my spring already, right? And again, some people want more tending, some people want more perfect engagement. So, personal choice. As long as it's going to engage when whatever you're standing on disappears. So I come around the back side just like that. Now I come in and I start counting. So that would be one. Notice that I'm holding this with my thumb. So when I pull that tension, I'm not losing it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, for me, 5 works pretty well. Notice that my thumb has kept all of that tension that I put in there, and it's holding it. The other great advantage to this hitch cord, I don't have sewn eyes on here or spliced eyes.
Yeah.
And with a spliced eye, I can't adjust the length. The eye is where it is. I mean, you can put twist in it to try to get engagement. You can put another wrap and all that. But I'm totally in control with how much spring tension that is being built into that system. And then that goes through the dog bone. Notice when I had it pointing that way initially, now it really serves me well because it's coming out that way. And once again, I can build tension in it because I know when I weight this up, this hitch is gonna settle in with my weight, so it's gonna be just about right for me to do this. I tie a stevedore knot that has like an underhand loop right there. Now when I tie the rest of the stevedore, it's gonna come up this way. So once again, I haven't lost any of that tension that I built into it. I come around and I'm holding that in with my middle finger again, so I'm keeping everything together. Comes around again. Notice how I filled that space that was there. Again, now I'm holding it. Come up. The end of the hitch cord comes through there. Tied, dressed, and set. Verified it. Sits on there perfectly. I'll take that little knot out, and now I'll do my weight test. And on a weight test, it's not like you have to take this off to test the hitch and stuff, because when this is functioning properly, you can't have one without the other. They work together. So, in natural order. I mean, this is on top. The portion was down here. It just works together. So I'll sit on that a couple times, make sure that I like it. One other thing, I just did this, but a lot of times new users will try to take, and the only way to lift this up the rope is like that, right? If you take this device and try to lift it up the rope, it's doing what it's born to do. It won't go up. So people will get frustrated because they don't know how to use it. But if you want to lift it up, you have to lift it up from the swing arm. To get that swing arm to just There's one other point while I was saying that it flashed across my brain, but it's not coming back to me. So, I just love the device.
That's brilliant.
Man, it works really good.
I love it, yeah.
And in total respect and admiration for Paul Cox, that came out the original version, who I've worked with, and his version was. I really appreciate Paul Cox for letting me fly with my version. And, a lot of people are like, some people will go, they don't like the setback. It has no setback. No, and that brings up another. There's so many things that I can get going on this thing. But anyway, I really appreciate Paul for letting me fly with my version. So we were talking about doing double moving rope, and a lot of times guys may not have a splice or sewn in. They'll have a knot on there.
Okay.
We know with a knot we want to keep this knot clear of that knot, right? Notice when this comes up, it comes up and it moves the splice up and around and over and out of the way of my hitch. If this was a knot tied right on here, it helps move it away from that life support and then goes on to it. So one other thing, it just makes it so safe.
It's very safe, yeah.
When it comes to that, top priority is safety.
Brilliant, very good.
I love it. And again, it lives on my bridge. That goes back and forth. It's pretty bridge friendly.
Yeah.
I don't know what, I mean, I love a harness that has a bridge. This is not 1891 cordage.
Yeah.
It's easy to replace. It doesn't cost that much to replace. So if this is fairly smooth connection on there, goes back and forth, functions really well. Again, if somebody wants to use the other version and put it on a ring, there's a lot of different. But whatever options they use to connect, I just wish it was those options that function really well when it's flopping. And I'm sure there's some other things. If I had a checklist and stuff like that, I could cover some more stuff. But I think I covered most of the main things that make it such a beautiful device.
Right on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, I will. I want.